Welcome back to Soul Mastery for the soul-led entrepreneur who desires it all, purpose, power, and profits. I am your host, Kylie Desai, business and success mentor to many entrepreneurs who I have helped build and scale their business through the lens of human design, utilizing hypnosis, nervous system regulation, and so many more energetic strategies and techniques to not only increase their impact, and to increase their income. And today, guys, at the time of this recording, it is International Girls' Day. And you know, I am all about the ripple effect and helping that next generation understand that they get to be the badasses that God made them. And not only do you get to hear this from me, but I have a very special guest and colleague coming on today, Kylie van Luyn, founder of Elevated Coaching and Consulting Global, who this is one of her areas of specialty. So before I keep going on, let's bring on Kylie. Hello, welcome, Kylie. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I'm
What a
so
beautiful
excited.
day to have this conversation.
I know, and thank you for sharing that. I'll be honest, I did not know that that was the day today.
Yeah.
Like, I have to get that on the Google Calendar, all the different days that are like that every day represents, because sometimes you don't catch it until like the end of the day. But before we get into any of that, I would love for you to take a minute and introduce yourself, because I know you as a colleague, as a friend, but I want my guests and the audience to know exactly how much of a badass you are.
Thank you. I'm not sure about the badass. Try to be, but a little bit about me. So I am the founder of Elevated Coaching and Consulting. We're global now. I'm just trying to think back. I launched the company back in Sydney, Australia, back in 2021, and then we expanded our operations into the US last year, so June last year. I'm an NLP master practitioner, a psychotherapist, and an emotional intelligence coach. But my professional background, apart from coaching and being a consultant, has predominantly been a good 14 years in the nonprofit sector. So really doing beautiful work with awesome companies and individuals and team members, where every day you go to work and it's very purpose driven to support other people on their journey to success or their journey to employment. And so yeah, that's a bit about my background, and that was very much, I guess, my experience in the nonprofit sector and the work that I did there really led me to launching my own consulting and coaching firm.
See, when you hear this podcast back on the replay, you're going to hear just as how much of a badass you are. Sometimes it's so easy for us as women to not step into that and fully acknowledge everything that we've done. So I'm excited for you to hear this on replay so you can hear in your own voice how much you've accomplished. So tell us a little bit about what is the Elevated Coaching and Consulting Global? What are you doing in this company? Like, what was the mission? What is the mission of this company?
The mission, and it's I wouldn't say it's a basic mission, but why overcomplicate something, right? So the mission for us every single day, whether it's in our consulting practice or in our coaching practice, coaching teams or individuals, it's really to support other people, individuals, leaders, and teams to reach their full potential and thrive. So whether it's elevating business practices, and we do a lot of consulting in that space, with corporates to support their workplace diversity, equity, inclusion, and psychological safety. It's also in the leadership development space where we do a lot of not only consulting but a lot of coaching around emotional intelligence for leaders. But it's really supporting businesses and individuals to reach their full potential and thrive.
I heard you say something, psychological safety.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain that a bit? Because it's the first time I've heard those terms put together.
Yeah, and we put them together because when you sort of break down diversity, equity, inclusion, and psychological safety, when you're thinking about it in the context of the workplace, you can't have one without the other. And so there's a lot of talk, as you know, around, we had World Mental Health Day yesterday. Yeah. We're talking a lot more, which is great, about workplace wellbeing and employee wellbeing and mental health, which is fantastic because we spend a good 75, 80, sometimes more of us, and spend a great proportion of it.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, in my career and in my career doing a lot of human resources work, what we've seen is that people acquire a lot of psychological injuries, unfortunately, in the workplace because of discrimination or harassment or not being respected and included and seen and heard. And a lot of those participants or those individuals I have worked with personally and my team have worked with, and they're people who are typically from marginalised groups or backgrounds, so people living with disability, people from refugee or migrant backgrounds. In Australia, we've done a lot of work with our First Nations people or our Aboriginal people, but women as well. And so seeing firsthand the impact that not having a psychologically safe workplace, what that does to a human being, and then their family and their relationships, and then it filters out into their community. That's why when we do the training and run a lot of our programs with corporates in particular, but also nonprofits, we focus on how do you achieve that psychological safety, and diversity, equity, inclusion is such a huge piece of that, along with emotional intelligence in leadership.
Oh, yeah. We're going to dive into emotional intelligence in a second, because I think that is, for the longest time, that's what's been missing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's great to be in your masculine, to have strategy, to have that go-getter mentality. But when you don't bring the feminine along, there's no emotional resonance there. So it's just like go, go, go. And then we're wondering why people are so burnt out right now.
Yeah.
Why? And I mean, unfortunately, the pandemic really brought to the surface so many of these issues that you're actually talking about, but for the longest time have been swept under the rug.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you're mostly working with corporations or individuals?
Both. And again,
Both.
we
Okay.
don't believe that a lot of our consulting work then flows into a lot of the coaching work we do. So we might engage a large corporate or a nonprofit for consulting work in the DEI, psychological safety space. But then what they find, thank goodness, what they realize along that process is, oh, wow, we actually need some leadership development and coaching here to support the how. How we can do this and make this diversity, equity, inclusion, and psychological safety a part of the company's DNA.
So when you're coming in to do that, how are you, so from an employee standpoint or an individual standpoint, how are you being welcomed? Like, are you dealing with a lot of resistance there, or is it kind of like a breath of fresh air?
I think it's all about how you approach it. Because that's change management, what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And we've got a lot of experience, myself and my team as executives, as previous executives, managing change effectively. But we really pull our coaching levers to do the consulting work in that space really effectively, right? So we sit in the coaching space the majority of the time, even though we're in a consulting space going into these organizations. But it's recognizing really very quickly and educating and building that awareness with leaders that you're dealing with human beings, and not every human being is going to respond to change the same way. You will have resistors, and then you'll have people that recognize the why behind the change, and they'll be on board and more enthusiastic a lot quicker than some. And so I've faced a lot of resistance to change when I was a leader and an executive, but very swiftly recognized, okay, these are human beings. How do we, speak? How do I use and pull the levers of my emotional intelligence, my skills in that space to make this change more seamless and comfortable, and take that fear out of it for the employee? So I think from my experience as an executive doing that, as a consultant running my own firm and going in as a third and neutral party, we haven't, really experienced that resistance, because we are seen as a third and neutral party. So we're not an individual's leader. We're not there telling people, you need to get on board. We're there. We're not the leadership team going, you're going to be, there's going to be negative consequences for you as an employee. We go in and come from a very, very supportive place. And we usually have a lot of disclosures people feel safe. And during that change management process, we have a lot of disclosures about how people are truly feeling that they haven't told their leaders.
Oh yeah. Well, you just said it, right? It's that question of safety.
Yeah.
And it's such an interesting topic because safety has come up a lot in the last couple of weeks in different conversations for me. So this is an interesting space that you sit in
Mm.
to have to deal with safety, because now you're not only talking about one to one, you're talking one to many, right? For the most part.
Yeah.
And not everybody requires the same level of safety.
Yeah.
Right. So for myself as a woman of color coming into that situation versus like a Caucasian man coming into that, how are you balancing the dynamics of that?
Well, we recognize really early on who we're engaging with in the audience. So, because I have, and we talk about intersectionality a lot in our work in
Yeah.
diversity, equity, inclusion, and so because we have that awareness going in as consultants and coaches, and we all have different lived experience, myself and my team, we can go in there very early on and realize, okay, Mary down the back, she's going to need something different to Joe down the front in this room, or just people's body language even, or their behavior. The people that are the quietest are either often those that are on board and don't really have a lot to contribute, or they are those that are going to resist the change the most. And so it's really presenting and workshopping through that with the group, but then having that time with every single individual, and not just the leaders, but every single person, that's going to help move that change along, and really understanding how they genuinely, honestly feel about it. And you're going to be on a really different part of that continuum with every individual. You're going to have people that are so far ahead and ready to just go and excited about the change, and then you're going to have people that are right back here at the start. But then you'll have people that'll go, forwards and then go backwards, and you have to go
Yeah.
backwards with them and coach them through, and really walk beside them to take them on that journey rather than just forcing it on people.
Oh, that's very interesting. And so, like, I don't think I've shared with you, but I also did my NLP master practitioner, right? But I've never thought about it in my mind to utilize it in this capacity.
Mm.
So, when you're using NLP techniques, how are you? I don't ask for proprietary, but like when you're creating these workshops and you're implementing these NLP techniques, how is it that one, that it's being received, but then two, again, it's because it's one to many, how are you able to drive that change?
So we usually start, even with our consulting work, in the mindset space. So
Okay.
very quickly making an assessment, either in a group setting, a workshop, or one-on-one, within the first 10 minutes, where are each of these people sitting with this change, or whatever it is we're proposing, whether it's change management, whether it's DEI, but it's very quickly looking at the mindset. So, and really very quickly realizing and making an assessment about how are we reframing not only the message around the change, if we're using that as an example here, a change management project, but also really being mindful of the language we use with each individual and the group, because we come at it not only from an NLP or using NLP techniques and practices, but coming always from a inclusion, psychological safety perspective,
Mm.
right? So we want to make sure that the language we use, not only is it us walking the talk, because we talk about how much language matters in our work and in creating psychologically safe and inclusive workplaces, but creating that safe space and establishing that within the first 10 minutes, and doing that in a way, by using the language that we know is going to create that safe space, help people go on that journey of shifting their mindset or the perception of that change and the impact it's going to have on each of them as individuals, even though they might be sitting in that room as a collective group. And so it's really that's how we approach it. Every single
I
change management project is approached that way.
That's
People first.
beautiful.
That's our
Yeah.
hashtag. People first always. If you adopt that mindset when you're going through anything like change management, you will see the results that will
Yeah,
be
for
positive.
sure. And what I love is that, again, it comes back to building the sense of safety, and for women of color, we've had so many experiences where we have disconnected from that level of self-trust, which is in direct relationship to safety, right?
Yeah.
And under learning from somebody that, okay, I can speak this way, I can behave this way, and it's okay. So it's indirectly like the sense of permission you're giving so many, not just women, but I'm going to focus on them for this part of the conversation. For so many women, and I think it's funny, even it doesn't matter our age, we're always under we're always looking for that sense of like, oh, okay, I can go do this. It's okay.
Yeah.
And again, we can go down a rabbit hole on this conversation, so I'll try to stop. But really understanding that as a person, they're already okay.
Yeah.
And now we get to just tweak it so you get to be excellent, whatever that looks like for them.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is essentially what I'm hearing you share. And I love this because for our listeners, we haven't shared yet, but Kylie is also going to be speaking at Women Thrive Summit in March alongside with me. And what is your topic going to be? I don't want to, hold on, let me pull it back. We don't want to spill the beans yet. But guys, you have to join us for this, because if you're loving what we're sharing already, Kylie is going to take it to a whole new level. I'm not going to have you spill the beans because it's too good. But in between now and then, if people want to get a hold of you, if corporations want to get a hold of you, what's the best way?
Corporations, probably LinkedIn is much. I do a lot of work on LinkedIn and connect a lot with my audience on LinkedIn.
Okay.
So LinkedIn is great, or you can also jump on our website, which is elevatedconsulting.net, and I'm also on Instagram as well.
Perfect. We'll have all of that in the show notes. And Kylie, you have a special gift for our audience. Do you want to share about it, please?
Yeah, so really happy to provide a 25% off our elevated coaching program. So it's all around what we've been talking about. So shifting your mindset, identifying and addressing limiting beliefs, and really looking at how you can reframe opportunities, look at things differently, but also reframing how you look at challenges as well, which is, I think that's a huge thing for all of us, right? I have to do that daily. How am
Oh,
I
yeah,
looking
for
at
sure.
this?
Look, again, no fault to the generations that came before us. I mean, they had their own stuff they had to deal with and work through, but we've been conditioned to think of challenges as negative. But if
Yeah.
you look at a challenge as like a game, in my mind, I turn everything into a game because then I can get behind it, right? Because there's also that element of fun.
Mm-hmm.
If we can change it into a game, be like, oh yeah, I wonder, what can I do with this? How can I move this boulder, mountain, whatever, right? So it really comes down to how we perceive what life is giving us.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's beautiful. So for our audience, if you guys have been loving what we've been sharing about, please reach out to Kylie. All of her links will be in the show notes. So definitely click, get on her call list. And I think this is just the beginning of this movement. If we have more women stepping into their own level of safety, reconnecting and building that level of self-trust again, I can't even imagine what the next decade, many decades will be like.
Yeah.
So thank you for being at the forefront of that and helping so many women of color, and corporations really understand that it is people first.
Oh, yeah. It's the way
Right?
of the future. Yeah. The best leaders, the most effective leaders are going to be those ones.
And on that note, thank you everybody for tuning in. Kylie, thank you for being our guest today. And until next time, I'm Jade Ali Desai, and this is Soul Mastery. We're wishing you a beautiful day. And remember, the time is now.